you could ask yourself, is multiculturalism in favor of social change or not? That is a very important question. And I would say that multiculturalists, as being leftists, or defended by people who perceive themselves as being leftists, they have a problem with the idea of social change. Because if all we have to do when we see exotic, quote-unquote exotic cultures, is to recognize these cultures, because that's what also multiculturalism is about. It's about a kind of peaceful, passive recognition of the other and the culture of the other. Then there is an imminent risk that these cultures will not change. And, myself being a modernist, I think there is a problem with this, because this is a dangerous thing to say. You might jeopardize a lot of things. It's a dangerous thing to say that it might be a good thing for certain cultures to change. And for instance, their approach to women, for instance, their approach to the state, the idea of the state, a transition from the clan or from the tribe to the state, and notions such as freedom of speech, etc. And because if you say this, people, you're asking for trouble, because people will tell you, well, so you think you're better than anybody else. Of course I'm not better, but I do think that there are certain cultures who have maybe been able to deal with certain things in a better way than other cultures. If you talk about Jews in Malmö, the official discourse was that the Jews in Malmö were harassed by Swedish neo-Nazis. But if you go to Malmö and have a look, you will not find many neo-Nazis. There might be one or two, but they are not responsible for the fact that the Jews in Malmö have left. Basically, they have left. So the threat, the reason why the Jews in Malmö have left is because they have been attacked by Muslims. Not all Muslims, of course, but Muslim groups and mostly Muslim young men. And you can't say this, even though it is true. So there are certain things you can't say, even though they're true. And there are other things you're free to say, even though they are not true, So what you say, as a multiculturalist, you go on saying the right things, which are wrong. But you can say them, and you should say them, because it protects you, and it gives you a lot of friends, and you can write a lot of articles, and everything you say is bogus, but it doesn't matter. So social reality no longer matters. I think England is the best example if you want to talk about the failures of multiculturalism, but I think, save for Sweden, I think Sweden is an even better example. In Sweden, for instance, in academia, you have a hegemonic discourse, and it means that people are afraid to speak up, and this is dangerous, because then you no longer have a discussion about things. You have people who, they wave their finger and they try to find out where the wind is blowing, and then they go in this direction. So you create a situation where people are nervously looking for appeal. They are nervously looking for maximum number of appreciation. And in society, also in politics, you have also a situation where there are a lot of things that you're not allowed to say. And you have, most of all, I would say, you have a situation where everything is being polarized. Where you have, if you would like to create a situation where you have right-wing fanatics who say all kinds of bizarre things, and then on the other hand you have the multiculturalists who say the opposite things, then you should have a look at the last few years in Sweden, because I think politicians, journalists, and the academia has, whether they know it or not, they have carefully created a situation which is, I would think, on the brink of explosion. I heard some strange rumors. My old head of department, well, a friend of mine, she talked to her and she said, well, we don't know if he's a Nazi or not. And my very good friend, she was shocked, and for weeks she didn't say anything to me. And eventually she did, and I said, well, I'm not, but that's not a nice thing to hear. And then they were scaling down, and then I was singled out, very oddly. So I lost my job, and Dean, my faculty, he suddenly made a complete U-turn, and he started attacking me. He said there were lots of problems with me, and lots of problems with the students and colleagues, etc. And I said, so give examples, I said. And he couldn't. That was like 3 weeks after my book had appeared. My book was not called A Critique from the Right, a critique against multiculturalism from the right, because if that would have been the title, they would have thrown me out, in no time. The title of my book was A Critique from the Left, and that must have made them very concerned, because the entire Malmö University College rests on the foundation of multiculturalism, as does Malmö, the city of Malmö also has a multicultural foundation. So they must have been pretty uneasy when somebody like me said that you've got it all wrong. This is a Trojan horse. You think multiculturalism is a nicely lefty, progressive, radical idea. It's not. My situation is not unusual, and I have a lot of good colleagues who still work at Malmö University College, and some of them have a hard time because they also question things that you're not allowed to say. They also question things you're not allowed to question.
What technique do your colleagues use in order not to get themselves fired?
Well, one technique is not to think.
Just from what you said and from the first 2 chapters that I've read, I feel like there's a certain element of fear that comes with different cultures and how we interact with each other.
When I walk into a space and my personhood is devalued immediately based on my
I was lecturing on John Stuart Mill, and then in the middle of the classroom was this Swedish Muslim convert, all dressed in black, with a white powder face, and well, that was it. I didn't say anything out of the ordinary. In fact, I was citing John Stuart Mill a few times, and I believe you can do that. Anyway, a few days later, I got pretty unpleasant email, and she finished off by saying the student dressed in her pride, and the email contained, a lot of pretty superficial allegations and misunderstandings of science, and she said I hadn't been neutral, whatever that is. Then I was called up, not once or twice or 3 times, but 4 times and 5 times to the head of department to talk to this woman and another woman, and this was like a court proceeding, and I was accused, I felt, for having lectured on John Stuart Mill. And I also told them, why am I here? After 8 months, and I think I must have sent about 100 emails, maybe 150 emails, I don't know. I was acquitted. The case was closed, and I was deemed not guilty of defamation, not guilty of discrimination. I was let off the hook, so to speak. And I thought, you took 1,000 hours of my life. What then happened was that she took it to Justitieombudsmannen, which is the highest JO in Sweden. And Justitieombudsmannen is the highest instance in Sweden in terms of, cases about discrimination and defamation. And that is actually all I know at present. And the fact that people seem to be so keen to blow these things up out of proportion makes me worried about the situation of free speech in academia. If this goes on, we might end up in a situation where lecturers will no longer talk in front of students, because they know that all that is required for a student is to press the red button, and then you have, at best, 8 months of allegations against you.
That's good enough. I thought, oh wait, this is